righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick, or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, truly, I say to you, as you did this to the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. So my topic this morning is caregiving. And as Joyce said, it's something we're all intimately familiar with. I firmly believe that Jesus taught caregiving. When it is said, as you did this to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. It's clear acknowledgement of the Christ Spirit within, which resides in each of us. It is both through and to this Christ that we are called to minister. Through the Christ within, reaching out to touch the Christ in each of our brethren. Now, Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines caregiver as a person who provides direct care, as for children, elderly people, or the chronically ill. And that's a relatively new term. It was first used about 1966, so in terms of language, it's fairly new. But the connotations associated with this word caregiver have a much broader scope of meaning. At least they do to me. I want to flip back a few days and refer to a piece in the Daily Word that I thought was especially important this morning. With joy in my heart, I lend a helping hand to others. Each day is comprised of 1,440 minutes. Each equates to numerous opportunities to help others, whether opening a door, assisting a neighbor, and so on. Someone once said, never get tired of doing these little things for others. Sometimes those little things occupy the biggest part of their hearts. These words remind us of how powerful our actions can be to another. The little things matter, for they create a flow of love and gratitude that blesses others. An unhappy day can quickly turn into a pleasant one just by smiling at someone or offering a listening ear. As I go about my day, my 1,440 minutes, I remain ready and waiting for opportunities to help others. And from Deuteronomy, you shall not see your neighbor's donkey or ox fallen on the road and ignore it. You shall help to lift it up. Caregiving can range from one end of the continuum, simply offering a smile to a passing stranger, to the other end, which may require a long-term commitment from the care receiver to the care receiver. Then there are all the opportunities that fall somewhere in between these two extremes. Things like praying with someone, taking food to a family in times of need, listening to a friend without judgment, hugging a friend. I know you can think of many other caregiving possibilities because we're all familiar with them. And as you can easily see, there are many life experiences in which someone can benefit from the care of another. Some of the bigger commitments may involve circumstances such as experiencing the death of a loved one, going through a divorce, loss of employment, estrangement from an adult child. The list is almost limitless. When we find ourselves deep in the quagmire of these challenges, it can be a great benefit to have a safe, non-judgmental, confidential person by our side. But a caregiver can only exist if a care receiver is in place. Deepak Chopra explains it this way: giving engenders receiving, and receiving engenders giving. In reality, receiving is the same thing as giving, because giving and receiving are different aspects of the flow of the energy in the universe. If you stop either, you interfere with nature's intelligence. In order to be an effective caregiver, certain characteristics are necessary for both the caregiver and the care receiver. First, I think of the caregiver needs to reassure the care receiver that their interactions are to be held in the strictest of confidence. And once that's firmly established, it becomes much easier to have honest and open discussions, which can reveal the deeper issues that are troubling the care receiver. This first step is imperative to build a relationship grounded in trust, and that's key. An effective caregiver will be an active listener, listening without interrupting, without shaming or judging, just listening, completely focused on what the care receiver is saying, listening between the words, if you will. It may be helpful at times to clarify what you think you have heard. You can say, I understood that you were saying thus and so. Or you can ask, could you say a little bit more about that? And body language can help in understanding. So it's important to finely tune yourself to all the nuances of conversation. Focus is the key. Be fully present. Appropriate boundaries are of the utmost importance in this relationship. And while it may be difficult at times to remember this, it is necessary. The care receiver's issues are not yours. It can be difficult not to become entangled in their story. If this blurring of roles happen, you can be prevented from genuinely offering help. When I was training to become a Stephen minister, a few examples that they used really made impression on me. In one, they likened it to someone falling into a pool of quicksand. Getting in there to help them will not help them. It will only suck you under along with them. Instead, wouldn't it be more reasonable to find a way to assist them in getting themselves out of this predicament? You might locate a rope and throw it to them, or a sturdy branch to offer. You are then the anchor, and they have the leverage to move up and out, and that is the ultimate goal, to enable the care receiver to work through their issues and as a result be empowered, equipped to deal effectively with future life events. Another necessary skill, and that's helpful to develop, is the skill of simply being. Being with someone, not doing, not fixing, just being. Often in my caregiving relationships, I've found that the two of us could sit in the quiet presence of one another and feel the beneficial energy flowing freely. Stillness opens channels. This skill takes practice because you have to really nurture restraint. These are only a few of the important aspects of a caregiver-care receiver relationship. There may be others, and will be. since each person's challenge or need will be different. Your goal should always be help the care receiver find their own strength. Some people will be pleased to have you pray with them. Others might not be comfortable in that setting. If you've listened and allowed yourself to really know your caregiver, your care receiver, it will become easier to determine what that person finds comforting. Learning the art of the unity practice of affirmative prayer can be a key factor in being in prayer with another, and it can be very rewarding to both parties. I find that caregiving is often seen in a negative light. If you Google caregiving, you will find a myriad of links about caring for the caregiver. And I do understand that in the case when one person assumes 24/7 care of another, that primary caregiver will most definitely require support and will benefit from being a care receiver as well as a caregiver. I'd like to suggest that caregiving need not be a negative experience, but if allowed to be, it can be one of the most positive and meaningful experiences of your life. And to illustrate that, I'd like to share some of my personal experiences, if you'll allow me to. Each day was the same routine. On my lunch hour, I would drive the few blocks to the nursing home where both my mom and my mother-in-law, my late husband's mother, were being cared for. I was lucky to be this close because I could then check in frequently. Mama spiraled downhill into a place in her dementia where simple tasks were forgotten. Often I thought that she'd actually forgotten how to eat the meal that was placed in front of her. And my mother-in-law suffered from advanced stages of Parkinson's disease. Her motor skills were impaired, so that the task of getting food onto the fork and the fork into her mouth were often impossible challenges. How fortunate, but well planned, that I was physically close by and could be there at least for the main meal each day, which was lunch. The staff did all they could to get everyone to the dining room and ready to eat, but their loads were demanding. Here's where I found I could be of help. When I arrived, I'd gather my mother and my mother-in-law and get them to the table that they shared with 2 or 3, or sometimes just one other resident. The little foursome would sit without the sort of table talk that would have been their custom before this cruel twist of fate had robbed them of their social skill. Because the staff could not meet the needs of everyone, I found a task I could take on to relieve them a bit and to help the residents coming in for lunch, a way in which I could serve. Here I am, Lord. Use me. The terry cloth bibs, which were needed to be tied around the necks of each of the little folks as they sat waiting for lunch to be served, often didn't get delivered in time. I would go down the hall to the laundry and get a supply of clean bibs. Then I had the privilege of moving from one to the other of the diners gathered there, hug or pat or just gently touch them and ask about their day. They couldn't always answer. I'd offer the bib and tie it around the neck of the recipient who so welcomed the human interaction. I got to know them. I grew to love them. There was one fellow particularly who, due to a stroke or other horribly invasive event, it left him with a vocabulary consisting only of bam bam. The staff had taken to calling him Bam Bam to his face. It hurt my heart for him. It seemed to be an assault on his dignity. One day I asked one of the staff members, "What is this gentleman's name?" It was Kenneth. I said, "Let's call him that. I thought he'd like it." It became my personal mission to go to him each day when we gathered in the dining room, gently place the bib around his neck, and ask Kenneth how his day was going, if he was hungry, how he was feeling. He would, in a very grand gesture, reach out, take my hand, and in a very chivalrous move that many younger people wouldn't understand, I did, he would kiss my hand. His words were still only "bam, bam," but he knew I understood what he was saying. Now, I have to give him credit for one thing. When he was completely frustrated with things that were going on around him and he couldn't communicate, he could insert an expletive before "bam, bam." Blank, bam, bam, blank, bam, bam. I fed our table mates their lunch, and we had one-sided conversations. Afterward, I would get my mom and our Grandma Chloe back to their rooms, settled and comfortable for the afternoon. Then I'd help as many others in need of assistance as I could. As I deposited them in their little personal space, what was left of it, I heard stories of their homes, their families, the mementos they held dear. Sometimes there were pictures of their loved ones whom they introduced to me. Usually I would depart with a hug and a promise to see them tomorrow, and that was a promise I faithfully kept. These encounters were very brief in time, but to me, the caregiver, and the care receiver, the nursing home resident, they were a significant part of our day. I have so many memories of those precious souls who were locked in that place, floating somewhere between life and death. On one occasion, I was standing at the nursing station, and there was a fellow to whom a nursing assistant was attempting to give an injection of some sort. He was resisting vehemently, and it was clear to me that the reason was simply that he wanted the person attempting to administer the injection to clean the site first with alcohol. He couldn't say that, but his body language told me. So I asked him, "Do you want her to clean the injection site first?" He calmed down, and he nodded yes. I said to her, "Wipe the injection site with alcohol, and he'll be okay with that shot." She did, and the problem was solved. And one day, I remember as clearly as if it were yesterday, as I walked out the front door of the nursing home and toward my car to return to my office, I stopped dead in my tracks. I was stopped dead in my tracks. I was frozen. I was absolutely overcome and overwhelmed with gratitude. And until I could lift my head, my face to the heavens, and say out loud, "Thank you, God, for this gift you have given me," I couldn't move forward. And I meant it with all my heart and soul. It was a gift that cannot be compared to any other. Now, every person was not able to see this as a blessing. My own sister found it depressing, disgusting, and more than she could endure. And I believe that more than once she implied that I must be a little touched in the head to see it any other way. So we're all different, but there's still always a way to care for others, as Jesus told us to do. The supreme commandment: love one another. love one another. For me, caregiving is a gift beyond comparison. You can probably tell that it's a subject that's very dear to me. Being with another child of God as they travel uncharted waters, listening, calmly reassuring, offering support, and reflecting God's love is something that money cannot buy. It is becoming the bridge from darkness into light. It's a privilege that's available to all, but unaccepted by many. I encourage you to embrace these opportunities, to give of yourself. Remember that in giving, we receive. It's the law of the universe. I'd like to ask you to share a few quiet moments of reflecting with me, if you will. Let's sit comfortably. Breathe deeply and release any tension you may be holding in your body. With each breath, open your heart just a little bit more. As we close our eyes and let go of all thoughts, let's remember all those fellow inhabitants of this jewel of a planet we share. In the stillness, see each of those in need of loving, supporting, caring, surrounded in the warmth and light of God's love. See them receiving comfort and strength for the journey that they may be on. Send blessings to each needy soul. And finally, together, we join in giving thanks for the blessing of being the vessel of God's love, which we allow to pour freely from our indwelling Christ out into every heart. For inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you have done it unto me. And so it is. Namaste. I wonder if we might stand and close with